There, all right, we're all here. Hello and welcome, and welcome to Hanging with Haig. I'm Haig Coulter. It's the month of March, and month is Women in Cybersecurity Month. And today I have two guests with me, Trish and Jill Cagliostro, to talk about their careers and life at and away from the keyboard. Trish, Jill, welcome.
Thanks for having us. We're excited
Oh,
to be here.
so you guys are obviously sisters.
Mhm.
It's uncommon to have siblings in the same line of work, and maybe even more uncommon to have two sisters in cyber. So let's start with where you work and what you do there.
Sure. So I can go first. I work at a company called Wiz. We are the fastest growing security company of all time. I lead worldwide channels and alliances here. So if a good way to think about it is if the word partner is involved, me and my team are involved in some way, shape, or form.
Thanks,
Jill?
Trish. And so I'm Jill. I'm a senior product manager with Splunk working on our behavioral analytics service. So I've been a big fan of Splunk for a long time Splunker. So it's kind of like my dream job to be there building security products.
Excellent. And were you both like formally trained in like computer science stuff, or did you guys come into cyber from some other path?
Yeah, so I took a very traditional approach to getting into cyber, where Trish did the opposite. So it's kind of fun to be able to directly compare, especially within the same family, right? So I started out, I'd been exposed to cyber from a young age, thanks to Trish. I remember her getting called back to deal with some stuff on, Thanksgiving weekend, WikiLeaks timeframe. I was like 15. And so, I've been aware of security for a long time. It's part of why I pursued computer science at Georgia Tech for my undergrad. And then I targeted security internships because I really loved what my sister did and I thought it was so cool. And then ended up getting a master's from Georgia Tech as well in cyber and just finished that up, the technical track. But Trish took a totally different approach and it worked out equally well. Some may argue better. And I'll let her tell her story.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say different, right? For me, it's Jill's right. It's the total opposite. I randomly got a cybersecurity internship. And at the time, I was studying business and I wanted to be an intellectual property rights lawyer. And I liked the guy. So I applied for a few internships. Guy never stuck around, but the internship was incredible. I literally made me realize that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I loved how it was different. And so on my side, actually, the bulk of my career has been technical. I have no formal technical education. I'm all self-taught. And it's always been really cool because for me, like I don't ever think about things of how should they be done. Spoiler alert, I usually don't know how they should be done. I think about it as how if I like how could they be done, right? Like without having any boxes. And so like definitely a different path, but for me it's been about having fun, learning and getting to try all kinds of new stuff. I've never
Well,
done
that's
the
great.
same
And
path
also, so much of I think cybersecurity, it's hard to learn some of it in a formal sort of classroom environment because by the time a curriculum can be made, an instructor can be found to teach it, it may actually sort of be old news by then anyway. So
twice.
I can understand, well, Jill's getting sort of having that solid foundation, but then also Trish learning on the job because that's how you learn. It happens organically. So not only are you both in cyber and both doing relatively technical things, there was a time that you guys were both working at the exact same company.
Mhm.
And if I recall correctly, you were living in an apartment together. So what was that like working and living, like basically seeing each other 24 hours a day?
And you
Well,
think
we were living in a house first,
Okay.
which made it a lot easier. I think if it had been an apartment, I would have gone a little stir crazy because that's not a huge space. Sorry, Trish, I cut you off though.
Oh, both we're also Yell talkers. Like, there's no way
Yeah,
we would have ever been in an apartment. Like, we would have driven each other crazy. Uh,
yeah. We're also both always on meetings, so then you would have heard her in the background of all my meetings too. Uh, yeah, it was great though. I loved living with Trish when I first was moving to DC. When people would ask us if we were going to live together, our immediate answer was absolutely not.
mhm.
I love Trish, but she's a little messy, and I'm a little bit of a clean freak. And so, that was something we were worried about. But when I started looking for a place in DC, we ended up coming across like some really cool spaces. Like there was this giant house that was 2 blocks from where Trish was currently living, walking distance to the metro. And that's where we ended up living. And I started my life in DC. And it was a blast. We had friends over all the time, centrally located. And so we'd, work all day, get off work, hang out with our friends. We got to travel together too for like conferences and stuff. So sometimes we'd sneak away and do sister dinners.
Nice. So you guys were at the same company with adjacent roles, though, right? You guys weren't doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it was really fun because, like, for me, I was doing pre-sale stuff, right, in Federal Alliances, and then my sister was literally, I would hand them off to my sister. It was funny on Jill's first day, actually, at Anomaly. She's at a conference, and this guy comes up to her. He's like, "Oh my God, it's so great to see you!" And she was like, he was all excited, and Jill tries to like look at his badge, and he flips his badge around, and he's like, "I busted you." And Jill's like, no, like, I think you met my sister. And he's like, no way, like, impossible. And she's like, no, like for real. And she's like, are you in the federal space? And the guy's like, yeah. I'm like, well, you definitely met my sister. So like, it was so cool because like we got to work on accounts together. We got to spend a tremendous amount of time. Jill was like my safety net. I call him like whenever there's a big problem, I would call her and she would always get it figured out. It was incredible. It was an awesome experience getting to work together. And the best part was like, we spend a lot of time talking about our jobs. There was no like background info that we ever had to fill each other in on because we were living it. Right. It was like the coolest thing. She's like literally like, we're living together, we're working together, and like as about as close as you can get. And my assumption would have been that we would kill each other. We actually really liked it, honestly.
Oh, it's nice. And Trish, I think you mentioned once before that you were once on a team of 30 and you were the only woman on the team. Has that changed much since then? Do you think there's more diversity, like in the teams that you're working in? Do you see more women coming into cyber roles?
Yeah. So it's definitely better. When I was at Anomaly, I was on literally a team of 30 guys for 5 years, and it's one, and especially, and I was a sales engineer. That is one of the hardest roles to find women in. There's like 5 of them, and I think I know them at this point.
Right.
And it's getting better because what you're seeing is like what happens is that I feel like for a long time we were all competing for the same 5 people and they were just moving around to different companies. You've seen companies like Amazon, right, really make a big investment around creating the pipeline right out of college, and things like that, where like they're now starting to like systematically attack the problem instead of just like leaving it to be like, okay, people could just move around from different companies, right? There wasn't really any work to adjust the supply. We still have a really, really long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tech field is bad, and it seems like cyber is worse, and then cyber is even worse for like women of color, even that we just don't have a lot of diversity in cyber. And then I don't know if it's an unconscious or an implicit bias, but it seems like it does exist a little bit. And I think it's hard to pretend that it's not there, but it's nice to hear that employers, are tackling that by maybe targeting college grads and then getting them onto a program to build that diversity and get that pipeline of candidates in, because, greatness can come from absolutely anywhere. It's just letting people have that opportunity to try. And it would certainly seem that historically, a very similar pool of people has been sort of the well that they were drawn from, as opposed to saying like, let's get a bunch of perspectives and a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds.
Yeah, I think part of it too is education early on. Not a lot of people know security is like a career option, right? That you can be technical or know computer science and know how to code, but not write code for a living, right? And so something that I've done often is going back to speaking at high schools or at college programs, just to make people aware that it's an option, right? And that you don't have to be, a hacker your whole life to apply for your first security job. You can just start reading some free open source materials and really start to dig into it.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the schools and all that, I do know that I think there's been a whole lot more to encourage children sort of across the board to get into coding, where they have games and sort of gamification of coding, where you start at a level and then you pass a series of little gates, and then you get to go to the next level. And it seems like the way some of these programs are working is that they are appealing to basically anyone, because it's sort of the challenge of, can I get to the next level? So it's refreshing to hear that those kinds of programs are coming in. But when you're at work, would you say that you notice a difference in the way you approach a problem compared to some of your male peers, maybe?
Kind of. I think like for us, right? Like I think collaboration comes a lot more naturally. We're very used to working together. Like it's something I think women do really, really well. I think that from a perspective, right? I think a lot of times, women do a really great job with like inclusivity and like thinking about stuff that you wouldn't think about as a guy because you don't deal with it, right? I also find that like women are really good about like more of like creative problem solving. Like there's a little bit more flexibility in thought of like and willingness to try different ideas and really think holistically about something or maybe differently than you typically would see just because they have that flexibility. So I wouldn't say that it's like, okay, well, like working with women is like this, working with men is like that. But I do think that having that diversity of perspective and experience is really, really helpful in an organization because it provides better solutions, right? The more diversity, the more differences you have in people think, the better the problem solving usually becomes.
Yeah, and certainly fresh approaches or perspectives on how to tackle a problem, for sure.
And to add to that, if I may, I also think empathy comes into it a lot, right?
Yeah,
I think it's pretty well accepted that women tend to be more empathetic than men. And I find that empathy, especially as a product manager, helps me relate better to my clients and therefore communicate with engineering around why do we need to do something or what is the value of this to the clients. And by focusing on what problem you're trying to solve, why is this hard for the person you're trying to help with your solution, it changes the way you think about the problem. Instead of focusing on like, oh, this is the cool, hard technical problem, let's write an algorithm for this. It's more about what's the problem really facing your user and how can you make their life better?
Right. Let's meet the objective versus building something because it's cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we touched on like some maybe big employers who have programs to encourage sort of more diversity as they hire people on. What advice would you give to employers who are trying to increase gender diversity who may not have giant budgets to do that?
Sure. So, and we're kind of living that right now where I am, right? Where we need to grow fast, right? And it struggles because like the talent pool isn't there. And like it takes as much as we want to spin up a program overnight to be able to develop the talent ourselves. It's not even a money issue. It's a time and a resources issue, right? And so like for us, in all the times that I have ever been interviewed for a job in my career, I have never been asked about what I would actually do to think about, building diversity and inclusion and equity into my strategy as a leader. I got asked that when I interviewed here at Wiz. It is a topic that we as leadership, like we're not letting it fall in the background saying, hey, like we're doing better than most here, but we're still not where we need to be as a business or as an industry. So it continued, like it's kept in the forefront, like of our leaders challenging us, right, and making sure that like what can we do? There's different groups that we're members of, like for example, Women in Sales Everywhere, to try to open up that candidate pool. There's other programs like ICMCP, who I think just rebranded, right? There are different talent pools that you can tap into, and so like when I got that question about what I would do, my first thoughts were one. It's the idea that I won't close a role on my team unless I have interviewed a diverse candidate for it. So making sure that the at-bats occur. And the second thing is then tapping, and the earlier you can get diverse candidates involved, the better, because one thing that you see is that people bring people that look like them to when you refer to a job. So the first step is kind of creating that community. And then something else that we've started to talk about is I mentioned I was on a team of 30 dudes for 5 years. Making sure that when a woman is interviewing, she interviews with another woman to show her like, hey, there are people here that are like you. So they don't feel like you're going to be alone. Those are some of the things that we've seen and that have been successful. But in full transparency, I think most businesses out there, we still have a little bit to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, I applaud you for taking such a strong stance to it. Say, if we're going to interview a candidate, let's have some diversity in the interview process.
Right.
Let's not get 5 of the same person.
Right.
Yeah, I would say also, right, just like Trish mentioned, making sure diverse candidates get their at-bats. And part of how you can do that is making sure your postings for your jobs are where diverse candidates are looking. So there's also like newer recruiting sites that are geared towards women in tech, like Tech Ladies, that you can partner with to help get more diverse candidates into your pipeline.
Oh, interesting.
One more thing there too, actually, because when Jill brought up the job, so one of the things that we did early on too is how we write our job descriptions. So it's very funny. I did an interview internally a couple weeks ago in celebration of Women in Security Month. And, we were during the conversation, we were talking about how, like, when you write job descriptions, you have to write them, one, in a certain way that says you, right? It makes it more inclusive. Two, like being realistic on experience. And it's funny because I've never interviewed a guy who is like, oh my God, I don't have enough experience for this role. Like, would you please consider me? But I cannot tell you how frequently I have that conversation with women I reach out to on LinkedIn where they look at the job and they're like, I'm not qualified for this. And so, like, how you write job descriptions is also super important. Do you really need a candidate that has like 10 years of experience in literally every single function that has ever existed ever in sales? Probably not. And so, like, something you can do as a leader is when you're really like challenge your people. Say like, hey, like, is this a realistic goal? Is this one, on the recruiting side, it makes it more easy to source candidates and pipeline. But two, it makes it more approachable to women who, for whatever reason, don't seem to have that same level of I'll learn by doing, I got this, mentality. You see in men, right?
I totally agree. I think it's well documented that a male who maybe makes 30% of the requirements to apply than a woman who is maybe 90% of the requirements, and so that is certainly a difference, and I appreciate that. We've heard people here joke about looking at job descriptions where it's like, you have to have 15 years of Python experience. And it's like, really? Is Python 15 years old? Like, how can you have more experience than the tool you're describing?
Yeah.
Very interesting. So if we pivot away from work a little bit, I know both of you are really passionate about education, and that started at home. And I think you said something really poignant about your father instilling that education is the path to everything. And it sounds like that education focus has also influenced some of the charitable things that you guys do outside of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trish, go ahead.
So, education has always been a huge component of our lives growing up. My parents didn't grow up with much, and my dad's path out was education. He worked and put himself through school. And, throughout our lives, like my dad told us when we were kids, I will pay for the best college that you get into, right? It was always this way of elevating and lifting yourself up. And the coolest thing and I'll let Jill talk about a little bit about this part, because I think my dad's approach to education is really interesting too. It wasn't just, hey, this is important, you should do it. He really thought about it in a way that I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah, so when I was... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said, sorry, I caught you as you were drinking.
No, it's okay. What I was going to say, so like when I was looking to apply for colleges, right, my dad made me write an essay on every school I wanted to visit and why. Because if he was going to make an investment of his time and money to take me to these schools, I need to prove to him that it was worth it and that I was willing to invest my time as well. And so I had to explain what were my odds of getting in, why did I want to go there, what was my career going to be upon graduation, what was my earning potential, my hiring rate, would I like the culture of the school, like was it in a rural place versus city, how was I going to get to and from. And so that quickly took my list of 20 schools down to like 7, because gosh, who wants to write that many papers during their senior year, or junior year. And so it really, it's part of why I had a more traditional approach to my career, is because before I was even allowed to look at colleges, let alone apply to them, I had to really think out what was I going to do and how was it all going to work out. I think one of the cool parts too is, like, even though my dad finished his college degree early on, my mom started and had to stop her degree before she was able to finish it. And she actually didn't finish her 4-year degree until after Trish and I did, and about 2 years before she retired.
Well, congrats to her. That's amazing, though.
Yeah. And so I remember asking my mom, like, Mom, you're about to retire. Like, why do this now? And she's like, well, like, I supported the rest of you guys going through it. I wanted to do it myself. I wanted that cap in my that feather in my cap. And now she's a CIO. So it's pretty cool. Really worked out.
Excellent. Excellent.
I'm also pretty sure she has the best GPA in the family by far. I don't think it's close.
Oh, yeah. But I beat you, Trish, by 0.07. Was it possible to do it by 0.01? I was pretty mad.
Well, the oldest child is like the first pancake. That's where all the mistakes are made. And then all the children who follow have it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I think of her more like my pace car, like, am I doing okay? She set the bar so high though, Trish. Like, man, you are not making this easy on me.
Not academically though. School was never my thing.
That's true. Yeah. Well, that's because you the ADD, it's a little hard.
So let's talk a little bit about how that emphasis on education has translated into some of that charitable work that you're doing with the Malala organization.
Sure. So I discovered the Malala organization a number of years ago, and I thought it was one of the most beautiful things that I'd ever seen. Like a woman who was literally, and actually a young girl at the time, who was literally shot because she was trying to educate herself and better herself, and she didn't let her stop, and she didn't let it stop her. Now there's an organization that she established to not only, help other women go to school, but build schools, things like that. I mean, that to me is one of the most beautiful things in the world. 'Cause it's one, she's a symbol to say like, hey, perseverance is incredible. And two, she's making other people's lives better, like helping other women do what she did. So, and hopefully without some of the fears and the dangers that she had to live with. So, when I learned about it, I thought this is something that we have to be involved with, at least for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. I believe she was shot as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And she's 24 now, so it was only 9 years ago. Yeah. But the impact I think she has made around the world is really tremendous. I think she's also, she's written a book, I Am Malala, and I believe she's the youngest Nobel laureate ever because of her advocacy and her drive to educate people anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about it, right, is beyond overcoming the adversity and paving that way for many women after her, she felt it was important to not only pave the way, but make it easier and bring other women along with her. And I love to see that sistership, right, sisterhood in the industry, in the world, right? Not women just making their way and doing great things, but bringing others with them and making it easier for the next ones to come up.
Yeah, and Jill, I'll give you a little plug here. I think this is really cool because something that I'm really proud of about my little sister is that she's actually done that to an extent. Like, how many scholarships have you started now at this point in women's schools for women? 2?
Just 2.
Just 2? Yeah.
Just 2.
Like, at her high school, right? Like, you're helping kids who are younger, right, have resources to go and get a technical degree. At Georgia Tech too, right?
Yeah, for undergrads who are going to pursue cybersecurity as a way to get them to look at things other than Facebook and Amazon for potential job options afterwards.
Oh, that's really wonderful and remarkable. Is it a difficult process to do that?
Yeah, so starting a scholarship at a high school is very easy. You literally call up the high school front desk and say, I want to start a scholarship. And then they hold your hand through the whole process, and it's wonderful and easy. Colleges are a little bit trickier in terms of getting to the right people and getting it set up on a recurring basis. And so I would say if you want to start your first scholarship, I'd call up a high school that you want to work with because it's just a smoother start to the process, and it'll kind of teach you how it should all go.
Oh, that's really interesting and something I had actually never thought about, how easy or difficult it would be to have a scholarship started. But what a way to help feed that funnel with more candidates by at least giving people an opportunity to have some money to go and chase that passion or that dream.
Yeah.
Also, we have on the bottom of the screen there, if you would like to make a donation to the Malala Fund, you can see the website there, malala.org. And I know that Threat Quotient will be doing a donation on your behalf as a thank you for coming on to here. But again, amazing that you have also a scholarship program going at the high school level and at the college level. That's really interesting. So we're sort of getting to the end of this here. One fun thing I like to do is learn a fun and interesting fact about the people I talk to that most people wouldn't normally know. And so this is my opportunity to ask the two of you to share with all of us a fun fact that maybe some of your coworkers don't know about.
I'm going to let Trish kick off the story. It's a good one.
So we kind of like relived the hangover for my sister's 21st birthday. We had that, and it ended in a party at Mike Tyson's house. It was super interesting. My cousin does like social media stuff. So we had this like incredible trip where we started in the cabana, drinking all day, have a great time. And my cousin is like, "Hey, do you want to go to this party?" And we're like, "Sure." Like, we don't have plans later. Because I think that was like our chill night.
One night off. Yeah.
Yeah. After a long, I would think it was like my 5th day in Vegas. My friend's bachelorette party was like the 2 days before. And so my cousin's like, "Great. So like, we need to take an Uber to this like address." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." My assumption is that we're taking an Uber to Mike Tyson's house, right? So we literally get in this Uber. It drops us off in this parking lot in the middle of nowhere, right? It's like there's no cars. There's like a shopping center. Everything's closed. I'm like, "Dude, we're getting murdered. Like, this is not good. Like, there's no way this is the right thing that we should be going to." And what ends up happening is this like little white Mazda 3 pulls up, and the girl's like, "I'm here to take you to Clarity," which I think was the guy's social media handle that my cousin knew. And I'm like, "Oh my God, like this is not getting better. We're definitely getting murdered. Like, I've seen this movie. It doesn't end well for us." So like we get in the car and we end up going to the house, right? And so I think so you were 21, so I had to be 26. I'm 26 at the time. It's a bunch of like 18-year-olds that can't go drinking out of bars right now because like most of the sponsors at that point had gone home for the night. And so like I don't even know what to do at this point. And so Jill, do you want to tell a little bit from your side?
Yeah, so, we get this tour of Mike Tyson's house. There's like this cool mural upstairs of like all his big fights, right? There's like this awesome pool with all these floats in the background. There's a full basketball court. And we're just like, okay, but like now what do we do with ourselves? Like, we're not going to go swimming. We don't play basketball. So we just kind of like wandered around at first and like, first we were looking at all the cool like rocks and stuff. We may have deflated a floaty that may or may not still be with me. And then we found the tiger cage, which we were not explicitly told to stay away from, but no one was around and the tiger was already gone because he had an incident with a neighbor a few months ago anyways. So, we may or may not have snuck into the tiger cage because my friend had a tiger tattoo that we had to put back in the cage. It had escaped.
And then my cousin came up to me afterwards and was like, "You're embarrassing me in front of my friends." And I'm like, "All right, like, dude, like, we're at Mike Tyson's house. He's not here. This is so weird. There's a bunch of 18-year-old kids running around. Like, what else are we going to do?" And like, nobody saw. And she's like, "People saw. You guys can't do that. I asked you not to embarrass me." And then that was the end of our Mike Tyson story. We do have pictures from it with my friend's full back tattoo.
So obviously in the movie The Hangover, they steal Mike Tyson's tiger. I would have just guessed that they had made that as a funny part of the script, but Mike Tyson really did have a tiger on his property.
Yeah, the whole front yard is actually like a tiger enclosure. That's what we snuck into. So there's like a viewing circle, and then you technically can climb into it, but you're not supposed to. And there's like a whole little like tiger play area you'd see at a zoo right in front of his house.
Amazing. Who would have thunk it? Did you see? I thought he was really passionate about pigeons.
I don't know any pigeons.
Oh.
No, those were not a theme of the decor either.
Interesting. Maybe not in Vegas. Tigers in Vegas and pigeons elsewhere.
Or maybe like after the tiger lawsuit, he moved on to the pigeons. Who knows?
Interesting. Well, that is all the time we have today. Trish, Jill, thank you so much for hanging with us. It was a lot of fun and very interesting. And until next time, thanks for hanging with Haig. We'll see you later.